Rewind-a-dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
It's Rewind-a-Dynamite. I'm John Pollock, along with Wai Ting, here on this Wednesday evening. And by the end of this show, maybe the balance of power will shift.
Interesting. Okay. Between you and I?
Yes. Maybe after all these years, I can go one up on you after all this time, Wai, because everyone knows who has the influence on this site. It's Wai Ting who is pulling all the strings. We will see if that power is retained by the end of this 90-minute show. Okay,
well, you're going to have to take it from me, man. You're going to have to steal it from me.
How are you?
Doing all right. Yeah, not so bad. You know, we're still enjoying some late, nice weather. Nice weather that we probably shouldn't be having in the middle of November now. But nonetheless, it is here.
We have a lot of shows that are up on the site this week. In addition to all of our coverage from the weekend, a Power Struggle, Full Gear, we've got a great edition of Rewind-a-Raw on Monday night that Wai summarized pretty succinctly with an episode of Raw, a tweet that could have summarized that particular show. And the big one was Tuesday night, dropping our Rewind-a-Wai numero 74. I can't translate.
You got it.
74.
Yeah.
Of January 4th, 2010. TNA's 3-hour Impact on Monday night, going head-to-head with Bret Hart's return to the WWE. A episode of Rewind-a-Wai that we've gotten quite a lot of feedback on. This seems to have struck a nerve with people. This is, I think, the perfect time where we are a comfortable distance, but not too far removed, that it hits people in the, this is like a nostalgic show officially.
Kind of surprised that it's been 10 years since that show.
Almost 11 we're almost coming up on. Yeah.
You're right, yeah. So it was interesting to go back. I mean, you got a lot of feedback for it. I feel like I didn't get any. So are people just tagging you and not me?
Well, it's all that power you wield that scares off people from wanting to interact with you.
Oh, it must be. Okay.
I'm the man of the people that they all come to.
Yes. Well, we spent quite a bit of time, I think, thinking
How long was this show? 2.5 hours?
It was a pretty long show, yeah. 2.5 hours.
What's happened to these Rewind-a-Ways? Like, they have just gotten longer and longer and longer. These are becoming marathons.
Well, I don't know. We just find more and more to talk about with these shows. Of course, you do some great research. They're always packed with detail and notes. And of course, our executive producers often have a lot to contribute as well. And also the trivia. Come on. That's the
Trivia's
draw, really.
become that is a fun part where we go back to that particular weekend or week in history, and people have horrendous memories when it comes to what was going on at that time. I would do just as terrible at these. And my favorite part is no matter how many times he does not want to participate, I put Wai on the spot and he just throws out a random answer.
It's all I could really contribute. I do terribly on these, but this week we had Chris Thunder on. He actually did quite well, didn't he?
Yes. This was January of 2010, so everyone was digging Kesha, and back when TikTok had a totally different meaning.
Yes, absolutely. Could you imagine? I mean, I'm surprised that song hasn't made a comeback yet.
I'm not, but nonetheless, that was as Braden would call it, a banger in January of 2010.
Yeah, I don't think they say that anymore.
Have we moved on from banger?
I feel like we have. I'm the wrong person to ask.
Is there like a site that could just keep track of all these things? It would be really helpful for someone like me.
It might be TikTok, actually.
Like, just tell me at least what was the most recent one, so I can just be slightly out of the loop, and instead of saying it's dope.
Maybe you could still get by with that.
It's ill.
It all depends on how you say it.
Okay. Well, awful then, coming from me. So Anyway, that's our episode from Tuesday night. Go check it out. It's 2.5 hours looking at Impact. What an episode of this episode of Impact, where 5 million things happen, and it ends with the NWO attacking Mick Foley in January 2010, and a close-up of Hulk Hogan. Almost a sign of what's to come for the next decade.
Nobody got shot, though.
No one was shot, that's true. Which, have you been following Impact and the follow-up to that?
Not so much.
Like, it's a total comedy, like, silliness. Like, it's not even...
I didn't think it would be serious.
No, but I mean, it's like, I think you could have at least had fun with, like, the whodunit in a way where it's actually taken... Like, there's some payoff to it, but it's just, like, it's the 24/7 comedy of Impact is what the follow-up's been. It just seems... I don't know.
Right.
They immediately establish, it's like, oh, he's not dead. He's recovering.
Well,
but everyone was talking about it.
No,
you were trending.
It's shocking and deserves to be thoroughly, I think, discussed by the wrestling. I don't know. I got nothing, man. Not watching it.
That's fine. Okay, let's do a quick giveaway before we get into the news of the day. Members of the Post Wrestling Cafe, you don't have to be a cafe member if you're listening to this. This is just happens to be a list we go by, and we're going to pick a winner, but it's just a thing of gratitude that we do this for. This is not like there's some value attached to this. This is not like, oh, I'm holding on to my lucky ticket here. It's just, hey, what's up? It's like a virtual wave. That's what this is, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, just a nice gesture.
We'll explain on the Christmas show or something. But Wai, who do we want to just say what up to?
I think this week we should go to Connor in Ireland.
Connor in Ireland?
Connor in Ireland. Congratulations to you, Connor, in Ireland. You're Connor Fitzpatrick.
I thought you were just bullshitting. This was really a Connor in Ireland.
It is a very popular name over there. Connor Fitzpatrick in Ireland. You have the opportunity to receive t-shirt.
Connor who again?
Fitzpatrick.
Connor Fitzpatrick. You know what everyone's thinking?
What's that?
Who the fuck is that guy?
Sure.
Congratulations.
It's probably a made up name, honestly, but nonetheless, you win today's draw.
Well, congratulations, Connor, and all the best. Well, let's chat about some news items from the past few days. Raw on Monday night came in at 1,690,000 viewers. A small increase from last week, but the bigger increase was in the demo. They were up 10% this week, a 0.53, finishing number 4 on cable, where on Monday night, it was like all the cable news outlets, they all kind of came back down to earth. So it wasn't the inflation of all the different cable news shows that were proving to be highly competitive here. So that was a good sign for Raw, as was the fact that the Monday Night Football game was down 16% this week. And the tale of Raw was that their female viewership was up notably this week. Their 18 to 49 female audience was up over 20%, and women 12 to 34 was not just up 25% week over week, but in the third hour increased by 8%. Men, on the other hand, in the third hour dropped 26% among the 12 to 34 demo, and 18 to 49 fell 22% in the third hour. So it seemed that this was a show this week that women tuned into and men tuned in and then tuned out as the show progressed. I guess it was that promise of this elusive six-man tag with Drew McIntyre and the New Day against Miz Morrison and Randy that the male audience said, forget this.
How do you read any sort of meaning into any of this week after week?
I think when you look at, I mean, it's just more of a pronounced tune out that we saw, not just in the third hour, but also the second hour. I mean, the second and third hour were both relatively low this week. So what that tells me for this week is that the first hour, you did have like by Raw standards, a fine start in the first hour. And that first hour certainly didn't hook a lot of people because there was a big drop in the second hour. And then, the third hour was, just over 1.5 million people. So it just wasn't a show that I think grabbed a lot of people. And this was a week when I think Raw had more things working for them with a weaker football game, and they didn't have the same pressure of the news competition.
I guess so. I mean, I just think overall,
I don't think it's a hot program.
The show
today.
was bad. So I can't say like there's anything on this thing that was in particular a draw or not a draw. Nothing on paper that like I feel would have enticed anybody to tune in. So if you know anything about like particular stars who might be trending to continue to attract particular audiences, I'd love to know, because otherwise there's nothing I can really gain from this information.
I don't know if Raw has that dynamic with like even the ability to hotshot a match. If they announce something like next week, they're doing Orton and Drew McIntyre. Is that going to, like we saw in SmackDown, Bayley and Sasha meant something. I think if Roman were to defend the title and they gave it a week of promotion, I think that would mean something. On Raw, we're going to see next week, because that to me is the one match you can tease on Raw that will mean anything, just because it's been this feud that they've been doing all summer long. But I don't even know, like if you put that in the third hour at the end, I don't know if that's going to hold people to any meaningful degree. Like maybe a little bit above what a third hour does, but that's like 1.6 million people. I don't even know if a big title match can guarantee that on Raw.
We'll see.
AEW Games. Wade, did you watch this 20-minute presentation?
Yes, I did.
So let me go over kind of the nuts and bolts, and then I want you to give kind of an artistic review of this presentation. But some of the key items coming out of this was that they are creating 3 games, which will be 2 mobile games, one being a AEW Casino Double or Nothing, which will be released in the winter. Then we've got Elite General Manager, which will be essentially kind of like their, managing a wrestling promotion, very much playing to that fantasy element. And then their console game, which is being co-created by Yuke's, which is not only the former majority owner of New Japan, but also was the WWE game developer for 18 years, ending with the 2K19 game. So they're also working with Hideyuki Iwashita, who was working on the team with that designed No Mercy back on the N64 console back in 2000. So those were kind of the main announcements. And then they, I guess, just watched a bunch of Apple presentations and thought, this is the way we will deliver this message, with Kenny Omega, Aubrey Edwards, Cody, and Britt Baker.
Yeah. I'm a huge like Apple geek, so like anytime one of these Apple presentations comes on, it's a big deal to me. So immediately when Kenny showed up in like the jeans with the black turtleneck and glasses, I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was really funny. And I think simply let me just say, like, the idea that like something like this is being presented not by, some executive like behind the scenes, but by the actual talent who are, clearly in the case of Kenny Omega and Aubrey Edwards, have a big hand in the production of these things. I think that's really cool. And I think it continues to like show how much of a, I don't really want to call it a mom and pop operation because they're owned by a millionaire, but it at least feels, that much more personal and that much more grassroots, which I think the product itself, the wrestling product, has been able to convey up until this point. So that seems to, it seems to extend to the gaming division, which for these two in particular seems like a real labor of love. Kenny, I think, has talked about at least, mentioning No Mercy perhaps in interviews in the past when talking about potential for like AEW games. And that seems to be the main selling point of this. It's that the game that so many people romanticize, from that era to this day, more than 20 years ago, they are bringing back the director I believe he also worked on the Def Jam games.
Yep.
So those are very well remembered. And that seems to be the thing that has most people excited. They did air some footage. I've seen mixed review to the look of some of this footage. They did say it was preliminary, but it looks a bit more arcadey. Looks a bit more like WWE All Stars, which maybe to some people's taste, but to other people maybe they're looking more for like sort of a simulation. But it's early, and they have something to show for it. The mobile games, I think, will speak to perhaps certainly like it's Aubrey Edwards who's in charge of it, and she actually worked on mobile gaming before working at AEW. So it's interesting. I can't really say I'll be playing the mobile games myself, but
nor would I say the mobile games are going to give you, I wouldn't like take it as any kind of correlation to how the console game is going to be delivered. Like they're totally separate projects, but under the same division.
Yeah. And I definitely think though, like there will be interest in almost anything like that this company has branded itself at, with, look at the action figures. Those things are still sold out everywhere. They always seem to like the t-shirts do well. They always seem to do better than I think people expect them to. So even with something like the mobile game, I don't even know what a barometer for like successful mobile game is these days, but I could definitely see at least interest in people talking about it. But when the video game arrives, there are a lot of expectations. It has, if it's not a good game, I mean, look at what WWE's been through recently with 2K. Like it could really tank a franchise. So there are definitely high expectations for this AEW game.
Yeah, I'm really the worst person because like I'm not into any kind of gaming. So I'm kind of curious, like who is the intended target here? Because we have seen like I go back to, when I was playing games regularly of like that WCW NWO series that they came out with, to me was just such a phenomenon that went beyond just like wrestling fans that bought this game. Like it was just a huge game, and it's such an amazing advertising potential for a startup brand like AEW to have a successful game that lands in the hands of the right people. Is your target the, like, say you and I, two 36-year-old males where No Mercy resonates with us and means something? Or is this something that you want to be able to appeal to the person that is 15, 16 years old that, wasn't playing N64, that this will be something that is compatible to, their gaming habits and being in line with what a 2021 gamer is looking for versus a nostalgia gamer that maybe there's more crossover than we're aware of?
I think it's that entire net. It's the people that might be lapsed gamers, like perhaps you or I, who stopped playing video games ever since maybe like, those like the N64 PS1 generation that might be interested in something like this. I also think it's the current generation of gamers who might not watch AEW or even any wrestling, but if this game is good enough, if people, start playing it on Twitch or whatever, it might attract some people to AEW, or it's just simply maybe AEW's prime target audience of its TV show, 18 to 49. I think that's the appeal of something like a video game. It casts such a wide net that it could potentially grab people from all demos.
Yeah, I think it represents a large revenue potential for the company to have that successful first console release that can, it's not just revenue, but it's also branding for your company. And, it's a big deal. Like you saw TNA, they had a lot put into releasing their games, and I don't think met that potential, even though, not all that different from AEW. Like they had they leaned on their roster of guys that were heavy gamers, like your Joes and Styles, and tapping into that knowledge base. And they're definitely doing that with Kenny Omega, who's ingrained in that world. So he would be someone you would want here. But yeah, this is going to be, interesting, I'm sure, of what the release is and if expectations are met, because a bad release, that'd be a strong negative for any follow-up.
There definitely seems to be like, so, very much catering towards the hardcore wrestling fan. And, that's just the fact that they bring up No Mercy itself, tells you they are making this game for people who are longtime pro wrestling fans. And if they hit that market, and if they're successful with that market, and that market, I think, appreciates the ultimate game that gets made here, I think the rest will hopefully follow.
Tony Khan did an interview at tsn.ca, and there were some interesting quotes in this interview, namely with New Japan. It was brought up about the potential of working with New Japan now that Harold Meij is out as president of the company. And Tony said, with New Japan, it's been a little more one-sided, where we've sent people there, and I haven't really had people from New Japan show up on my TV programming yet. I'd like to see more of a two-sided relationship there, because I'm honestly one of the easiest people to work with in wrestling. We've worked with the NWA, we've worked with AAA, and we've sent people to New Japan. I think with Harold being gone, I don't know if it's going to be easier, but I have a feeling it might be.
Interesting, yeah. So shedding a bit of light on maybe what some of that holdup might have been in the past. Certainly with COVID, it's like, it makes you wonder how close you might be to getting anything like that of the sort in the near future. But that AEW is open to it. It just comes down to New Japan.
Yeah, and if we're trying to read into things, I mean, like, we saw that New Japan had pretty much iced any potential of working with Impact Wrestling, to the point that they ended up off Access TV because they wouldn't work with Impact. And now we're seeing, promotional stuff show up on Access TV for New Japan Strong. They're putting Chris Bay into the the Super J Cup tournament. So is Impact kind of reassessing their position that, hey, it's worth getting into bed with some of these U.S. promotions? And if you're looking at, kind of thawing that relationship with Impact, does that change your stance and open the doors for AEW, which to me represents a lot more potential of back and forth talent exchange? And at least based on what Tony Khan is stating here, he's open to it, but he doesn't want it to be just, we're sending talent and nothing's being reciprocated.
Well, the whole industry really has changed as a result of COVID, and especially if you're not the WWE. I mean, any sort of footing that New Japan feels like they might have had in the U.S., I definitely feel like has been diminished. I mean, not just by AEW's arrival, but because they haven't been able to do their U.S. plans the way that they wanted to. So, and neither has AEW been able to. They haven't been able to tour. So I think all these companies have to start reassessing their willingness to work with each other in order to just help the entire industry to succeed. It's ultimately what the fans want, and I think ultimately it would help everybody.
He also said that the third hour of programming, it will launch in 2021, Khan said. He said, we've worked it out with TNT. It's 100% going to launch in 2021. I don't have the exact date yet, but I would look out for it soon, and it's right around the corner. So this is the another hour of programming that they have stated will not simply be AEW Dark being put onto TV. It will be an hour of programming, and we'll see where it's put in the schedule and what is that content made up of. Is it just an extension of Dynamite in terms of just first run matches and a similar tone to Dynamite, or do they have something that they're envisioning much different from Dynamite?
Yeah, this roster keeps growing. A lot of guys don't get onto Dynamite. So they can, we'll definitely see. Dark itself is getting longer and longer and longer. So we'll see what they have planned. At this point, would you be disappointed if it was simply a show of matches? Are you expecting something more than that because of I don't know how much hype there's been about this not being Dark?
I think that it's got to be an hour that is must-see. And you could simply, I guess the concern would be if it's just simply you're taking Dynamite and you're adding an hour on whatever night of the week it is. Are you at that point where people are what's people's threshold? It seems 2 hours is a good amount. So if you're going to add this third hour, you don't ever want to introduce a show that people just see and it represents a chore. I think with Dark, it's like if you watch that show, you get to see a lot of young talent, but it's not mandatory viewing. You can follow AEW very closely, and you don't have to watch Dark. For this show to succeed, it's got to be a must-see show. It can't be just, it's an enjoyable hour, but it's not must-see. On the other hand, though, like you're talking about asking your fan base to watch 3 hours a week of what needs to be mandatory viewing. Is that going to be a task for their audience?
Yeah. And I think a big key to it is to be able to make it different enough, whether it be in the wrestling style or perhaps, elements that you put on the show, whether it be like different types of promo segments. Maybe it's video packages. Maybe it's, something else that accentuates the experience of being an AEW fan simply rather than just getting more of maybe what you get on the Wednesday. I'm definitely interested in seeing what different ideas and original ideas they might have for this show. So if it was just, for instance, an extra 1 hour edition of Dynamite, I think I would be disappointed.
Well, they've had enough time. This was part of their new deal that was made back in January. So, they've had the whole year they wanted to launch it earlier. That will be something to watch for in 2021. What night of the week would you throw this onto?
They've definitely crafted a bit of a appointment viewing for Dark on a Tuesday. You can always move Dark to another day on the internet. Maybe Tuesday leading to Wednesday might be a good time.
Where it could be an angle heavy show to set up Wednesday's show.
Sure, yeah.
Which at the peak of Sunday Night Heat, when that show was doing monstrous numbers during the peak period, that's kind of Sunday Night Heat. The goal was, set up stuff for Raw the next night.
Yeah. Do you see any chance of it being Monday or Friday?
Not Monday. I believe Tony Khan when he states that, given the Jaguars and the NFL relationship, that they don't want to present anything that's in competition with the NFL. So I throw out Monday and Thursdays for those reasons. Tuesday seems like the night you would aim to do it on, unless you wanted to be very aggressive and you put it on a Friday against SmackDown.
How about Saturday? Saturday night.
And then what? It's a lead-in for pay-per-view nights?
I suppose so. Yeah, whatever. Because AEW does their pay-per-views on a Saturday.
I just think it's a bad night of the week because you're always going to have a UFC going against you, whether it be a big or a small show. And it's just, in terms of audiences being at home, I just think Saturday and Sunday are just much, much tougher nights. And you've got so much sports competition on Saturdays that...
Yeah, I just think about the 605, Saturday thing that they might try to bring back.
It's also, TNT, it revolves around their NBA schedule. So it's going to be, nights that are either you avoid a night where the NBA is on, or they take away what they learned over the summer in August that, the NBA with AEW coming out of it's a nice programming pattern where AEW gets a big boost coming out of an NBA game that's where that hour goes as following a big NBA game, which you won't be able to get every week, but that's how you establish the time slot is it immediately follows the NBA.
We'll see.
Tribute to the Troops is coming back this year. They had done the show last year, but it wasn't televised. This year, it will air December the 6th, which is a Sunday, and it's going to be airing around Fox's Sunday afternoon NFL games. So that will be done at the Thunderdome, and they will be having servicemen and women and their families in attendance. So they'll be promoting that over the next couple of weeks. And coming out of Impact on Tuesday night, was the announcement that the Rascalz, Trey Miguel, Zachary Wentz, and Desmond Xavier have been evicted from the Treehouse, and they will be having their final match on Impact next week with Rich Swann and Trey Miguel taking on Dez and Wentz. And this appears to be the send-off for the Rascalz, finishing up with the company.
I'm really excited to see where those guys end up. And interesting that they're all leaving together. Which would indicate that they'd probably reappear somewhere together. Do you have any guesses where they may be?
I mean, it would seem that WWE is a potential landing spot for them. I know that there is a report out there stating WWE is there. I can't confirm that, but it does seem like you look at WWE and they're making some signings now, and I think the Rascalz would fit in if it would be, whether it be an NXT or just to put some young baby faces on the main roster. I think that that could be a welcome addition to a Raw, to have some young baby faces, such as the Rascalz are. I think honestly, like, these three, they've got a great act together. Impact had really gotten behind Trey Miguel over the last couple of months, pushing him as kind of a single star as well. And I hope that the three, you would imagine they're kept together if they're all being brought in together. Where would you think that they would be best suited to go right now?
I think NXT would be great for them. I mean, all these promotions, I would say, are somewhat bloated right now with a lot of talent that have still yet to receive, I think, decent pushes that are waiting for them. But I think they would fit in really well in an NXT mix, especially if they come in as a trio. Automatically they would feel somewhat unique, coming as a three, like a stable essentially, and then fitting into a current set of stable wars right now in NXT. I would be interested to see. Obviously AEW they would fit right in there too, but I almost feel like AEW has too much of, just too many people right now for the amount of TV time that they have. And I think in terms of wrestling style, they're probably quite similar to just a bunch of guys that are already out there on that roster. So my pick would be NXT.
Okay, you can go to postwrestling.com for all the latest news. Andrew Thompson also has a 1-hour interview up on the site with Matt Taven of Ring of Honor, if you want to go check that out. We move on to Dynamite from Daly's Place, and they had quite the rainstorm going on tonight in Jacksonville. I'm amazed this hasn't been an issue more weeks.
I guess would it matter? It's covered, right?
Partially covered, yeah. I mean, it didn't impact the program at all. But I mean, there is still the opening of it, and I can't remember any other weeks where we heard of a downpour or anything like that. But it was brought up here. I guess Cody made mention of it, but if you were looking, there was quite the storm tonight in Jacksonville.
Didn't really come across to me on the show, so I can't really say it made difference for me.
So this particular episode, it was noteworthy because earlier in the day, Tony Khan had quite the tweet to set up tonight's show, stating that the balance of power would shift by the end of tonight.
Yes.
That's quite the promise to go into tonight's show, I must say.
Balance of power, yeah. I mean, hard to measure, but okay. Do you feel like it achieved that by the end?
Are we talking about the balance of power in all of professional wrestling? I don't think that was achieved in one night.
I don't think so either.
Let's pull up the exact tweet. He wrote that tonight. Well, he said to stay tuned to the end. He promised something would be good. But earlier in the day, here it is. He says, we will keep delivering great matches on Wednesday nights. There are massive surprises ahead. Please join us on TNT tonight. The balance of power in wrestling will shift tonight.
Yeah, I don't know what that would have been alluding to that was on this show, because I don't think there's nothing that big.
I mean, if he was talking about the balance of power on Wednesdays, I mean, that would kind of be bad news for AEW.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
And I don't see that power shifting tonight.
Seriously, does Pac arriving indicate any sort of a shift of balance of power?
Well, it's what I'm saying is that anytime you do a tease like that, you better have a goddamn home run. It's what I always say about the promise of the mystery partner or the mystery opponent. It's that you can dangle that, but it comes at the expense that you are now setting the wrestling fans' imagination into orbit, where they are going to be thinking of every possibility. And when Tony Khan throws out a line like that tonight, and people are automatically going to be thinking in the direction of Sting showing up or Goldberg or all these wild ideas, Like, you have to have something that if people can't guess who it is, it's got to eclipse what people's expectations are. So I think for this one, knowing that it was going to be Pac and you had just aired that promo last week, I think this could have been a surprise on its own without getting that kind of a hype behind it, because it's unfair to Pac that people are at the end of it saying, oh, it's just him.
Right. Yeah.
Like that was a cool surprise at the end of the show, but you've built up so much by throwing out a line like the balance of power will shift tonight in wrestling. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, we're probably thinking about it way too much, way more than he maybe intended.
This was like a big discussion tonight. Like, this was like the big thing on everyone was, discussing.
Maybe he meant the brand new opening and the change of font on this show.
Well, that's true. I mean, maybe they landed a gigantic. Maybe they designed their own AEW font tonight. Maybe this is exclusive to Dynamite.
Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah, but we have a slightly new altered opening to start the show here. New shots of the roster in front of like a custom backdrop. And I think 1 year into this thing, slight rebrand. It looked good. We also saw a font update, which I don't think many people probably even noticed nor cared about. But
they had the new match graphics as well. They look fine.
Yeah, it all looks great.
Yeah. Team Taz comes out at the beginning, and Taz points out that Darby Allin is seated up in the rafters with the TNT title, and he tells him to keep his narrow ass in his seat and contact Cody Rhodes and tell him do the same thing as Taz threatens them. Brian Cage was set to take on Matt Sydal with Taz on commentary. Taz is, he's great. Just plays like the old crotchety veteran that's annoyed about everything, and he's great at playing pissed off. Cage attacks Sydal in the corner, suplexes him. It's all Brian Cage. And then as he goes for a German suplex, Sydal lands on his feet, goes for a Hurricane Rana, which gets blocked by Cage, but then he's able to catch Cage with a powerbomb, hits the Meteora to the ramp, and then he's cut off with a discus lariat. The drill claw gets countered with Sydal using a Hurricane Rana, hooking the legs for a 2 count, and then, in the most impressive thing in the match, Matt Sydal does a flip off of the top, and he's caught in midair into the drill claw, and Cage wins in 7 minutes and 45 seconds.
Spectacular finish, and I really do wonder like what the intent of them hiring Matt Sydal is at this point. I mean, they haven't necessarily been pushing him. They haven't really given him a storyline to speak of on Dynamite, at least. But I see the purpose of him in a match like this is to be able to give somebody like Brian Cage a spectacular highlight reel clip in catching him in this drill claw and delivering this finish. The finish alone, I think, was worth watching. The match, I think, was good. But I will say, like, for this edition of Dynamite, perhaps it's just because they wrapped up so many stories at Full Gear. And maybe it also felt like they're giving a lot of their maybe top upper tier stars a break too on this one. This felt more to me like an edition, like sort of like a higher end edition of Dark, where you had a lot more appearances from sort of like undercard talent who don't really have anything else going for them. And as a result, I can't say I felt much for Sydal here. He's just a guy in AEW. There's kind of little reason for me to care about him. Taz tried his best in that promo, but it wasn't quite enough. But nonetheless, if you're just looking for straight wrestling, you might have been satisfied by this. Certainly, anybody would have been with that finish.
Yeah, I thought they had a good match, just like a good opener, really really fun finish that they had mapped out. Starks then got on the mic and said that they are ranked now. He's going for the TNT Championship, and they're going to put anyone that gets in their way into the grave. Death.
That's what it means, yeah. Or a bunkhouse.
Oh, potential.
Yeah, he sounds great. And I think, with Darby now as the TNT champion, that division is now refreshed. Starks and Allen already have a feud going on, so they can renew that rivalry over that belt. But just looking at like the mid-tier of this show, the mid-card of this show, with Darby as sort of like the leader for guys like Starks to chase, I would say it's in really good shape.
Cody comes out, and Jim Ross notes, "The man can now use his name. What a country." Cody brings up the weather, congratulates Darby. He says him and Arn are not seeking a rematch right now because he has another loss that he wants to expunge from his record. So MJF is who he is talking about. And then out walks Jade Cargill, who confronts Cody and says that Cody is lying. She has been studying on the sidelines, which she literally was, being in the front row at Full Gear on Saturday. Cody, she says, you called yourself the Giant Killer, and there is nothing giant about you. And she knows a giant, and Cody's statements might just wake this giant up, and says when it comes to these comments, keep that shit to yourself and watch your back. She is nothing to be played with. Then congratulates him on his name, but he didn't have the balls to go by one name. Is that a real, like, you're so lame with a last name. You're not a badass like Sinbad or Madonna or the giant that she represents, a real star, Shaq.
I did not expect that. I thought, oh, okay, who has like AEW signed recently that hasn't made their appearance yet on TV, and who's this giant that goes by one name? Trying to rack my brain thinking about who it would have been. I did not expect Shaquille O'Neal to be that giant, and I'm very excited at the potential of a Cody Shaq match.
I mean, it does. I mean, he did do that interview stating he wanted to face Cody. From a strategic standpoint for TNT, okay, like this does make sense that you can do this. And they've obviously, like, they're teasing this, and this is not something where I don't think it's going to be revisited. They put this front and center for you to expect.
It makes absolute sense. I think Shaq as a personality is just spectacular, doing anything like he chooses to do. Do you know what he's been doing lately? Like, of course, other than, basketball.
No.
He is an EDM DJ. And like, okay, like he's doing, well, he's also like spokesperson for Papa John's. Is a man of many projects. But like, so I was eating Papa John's the other day. And then like, I'm still thinking, oh, like Shaq's the spokesperson now. They sell like this Shaq like pizza. And I decided to like look up. Sometimes when I eat, I'll just like put music on, and like what I had in mind was like, I want to listen to Shaq rap. I want to listen to his like rap album from like the 90s.
So there are not too many people who have that desire.
Well, I mean, let me tell you, like, first of all, like I listened to some of it, Twism, Twism. You know what that means?
Yeah, I got it. I got the album right over here.
You got the tattoo, I bet, too. Twism. But then, like, the playlist keeps going. There's like a Shaq playlist. And then it's just the worst, most awful noise. And I'm a fan of like electronic music, but this shit was just like the worst kind. Then it just keeps, I'm thinking, oh, okay, this must be like a remix of his like rap songs. Then it just keeps going and going, song after song of this terrible, terrible music with like a Shaq in the background, like doing some sort of drop. And then I realize Shaq is a DJ now. I look up on YouTube, I type in Shaquille O'Neal DJ. The guy's like DJing like these huge festivals. And I don't know what he's exactly doing behind it. The turntables, he might just be hitting buttons, like one or two buttons. But it's like, he's like a really popular DJ. So, the man, anything he touches is gold, including Kazam, including Shaq Fu. Like, this'll just be, I have no doubt this will be a success.
Maybe this guy should be part of AEW Games.
Absolutely. Like, he's in the UFC game.
Ken Fu.
Ken Fu? What do you mean?
Omega. This could be the whole the series.
Oh, got it. Yeah, they should really switch it up. Forget the No Mercy. Shaq Fu is what you should be aiming for.
This is what's being dangled out there. And as Jade Cargill is back up the ramp, out comes Brandy. Who told you tonight was open mic night, bitch? Now you're my problem. Don't ever talk to him like that or even look at him. Bitch, get your ass out of here. And Brandy, it just cuts the promo of her life here on Jade Cargill. And as she turns around, Cargill smacks her on the ass, and Jerry Lynn has to come out and separate the two. I thought this confrontation was great.
It was great. You can tell Brandy, was probably waiting for an opportunity like this for a long, long time. It's been a while since we've had a fired up Brandy promo, and she unleashed on this poor Jade Cargill. And let me just say,
this was, I thought, sorry to interrupt, but I thought this was her best promo since she did that road to the one where she's talking about being a figure skater, and I mean a totally different style of promo. But I mean, we've heard Brandy when she has the character dialed in and there's a purpose for it. She is a exceptional promo. I thought she was great here. Just
incredible confidence, great delivery, great trash talking. And I think it took a really good partner for her to be able to kind of bring that out of her. I thought,
dude, this Jade Cargill for a first time on national television, she had way more confidence and poise about her than many people in that position to come out and really carry this. It was not leaning on Cody. Cody just had to stand there for several minutes while she carried the promo portion.
She definitely felt like a star to me, and I haven't seen her wrestle, so I don't know what level she's at there. But as far as obviously being as tall as she is, the presence is absolutely there. The confidence is there. She looks impressive. She sounds impressive, and she had a big message to deliver here. It's in Shaq. It's kind of unconventional having a female wrestler interrupt a top male star like this, but to me, it immediately showed how much confidence they have in her, and I thought she delivered. It escalated her to probably a higher level than she would have had if she interrupted any female wrestler on the roster, for instance.
Open mic night, bitch. So this was, I really enjoyed this. And then Brian Cage returns, and this was just segment with just tons of stuff stacked on top of it. Brian Cage returns to attack Cody with a power bomb. Starks is in, so Darby's music plays and he comes out from the crowd. They fight off Team Taz. Allen is wearing his thumbtack jacket, which he nails Cage with. And then at the end, Will Hobbs shows up and gets into the ring, and Cody and Darby we're good. We took care of the problem. Which maybe is by design. We don't know for sure. Will Hobbs was given the choice. Are you joining us or not? Was he late on purpose? I think there was potential reasoning for this.
Very interesting. I didn't think of that. I thought he was just he was probably in the bathroom or something. He was just oh shit, I should probably be out there. He was really late.
And he shook hands with Cody and Darby. So
I hope he washed his hands.
I mean, if you were mid piss and I was getting hit with a thumbtack jacket, I mean, I'd still want you to wash your hands. But I mean, if you didn't, that's what a save is. You just got to drop what you're doing.
That thumbtack jacket, and for those of you who didn't watch Dynamite, it's exactly as it sounds. Darby Allin is wearing a blazer with thumbtacks on the back. He's doing coffin drops onto people. He's doing sort of that umaga thing into the corner. Man, that looks brutal. And I almost feel the dudes taking those bumps, you can't appreciate how painful that must be. Because usually thumbtacks have a great deal of anticipation attached to people taking them. They pour them out from the bag, and then you really build up to the spot. This is you don't really even see close-ups of the thumbtacks. It's just a guy wearing a jacket. You think he's just from a distance doing any sort of regular move with his back, but then you see Brian Cage picking these thumbtacks off of his chest, and I feel bad for them.
What is the pain threshold that this man just accepts as normal? This guy, we've seen, what are all the stunts that we've just seen him do in the last few months? He's rolled down a half pipe. He jumped off a bridge. I guess it was the buddy that got hit by the car last week.
Yeah, pain threshold. I don't know. I mean, but he says half of him is already dead. That's his whole thing, right?
Yeah, well, this thumbtack jacket, how do you get this thing through customs, like if you're flying home?
I'm guessing he doesn't.
Do you check that? Do you put in your carry-on?
That might be a FedEx thing. I like to see Shaq in this thumbtack jacket. There's a pairing. That's the world he's entering.
That can be the team name. Thumb Shack.
Boom.
Not a boom. Throughout the night, I kind of like this. They highlighted pretty much all the matches from the pay-per-view. Like they took 30 seconds or so to recap all the matches. And as much as people would complain about when, not so much now, but when NXT used to come off the takeovers and the episode was usually, a match or two that they taped before the pay-per-view, but it was all focused around coming off the pay-per-view. And maybe they went too far in that direction, but I always preferred that the show afterwards, the focus should be looking backwards. Like you are coming off a major event and we are still absorbing all of the consequences and what happened at this huge event we built to. And to your audience that did not see the show, you're giving them a huge dose of FOMO.
Absolutely. Yeah. They even decorated these clips with quotes from notable pundits in the industry. So I definitely
did Braden make it in there?
I didn't look close enough. No.
Oh. Alex Marvez interviewed Jon Moxley. He asks him about Kenny Omega. What's going on with the echo in these backstage interviews? Is this a TSN thing? Is this a TNT thing? Because it
was TNT. Yeah, it was live in the arena. I mean, they just had the crowd mic on the entire time. So this
was a problem last week. This was not just an isolated incident. They got to fix this. This is total amateur.
So they ended up fixing it for the rest of the segments. But here, it was like the audio engineer was asleep, or maybe he was busy doing something else because you couldn't hear anything here. Like you were getting the regular feed plus the crowd feed, so everything sounded like it was in a cave. I couldn't make out what these guys were saying at all.
Brutal. There's no excuse for that. TNT's got to figure that out. He said that it was he's asked about Kenny Omega, and he says that on Saturday it was more pain than he has ever experienced in his life, but he could not say the words "I quit." I came here for the roar of the crowd in the greatest business in the world. This title represents everyone, the people who can't pay their bills, kids who get teased and bullied, others that can't even make out what I'm saying because of this echo. Kenny is one of the greatest. I beat him once. Doing it twice will take somebody special to do that, which I am. I'm the best wrestler in the world. I'm the man, and I wish Kenny good luck trying to beat me. And with that, they announced that the title match between Moxley and Omega is happening on December the 2nd. In 3 weeks, they're going to do this.
Oh, I didn't realize that was only 3 weeks away. Wow.
December 2nd.
Okay, wow. So first Dynamite of December. That's earlier than I was expecting. I think February, for full, Revolution might have been difficult. That's a lot of TV to have to
4 months.
Yeah, that's a long time. So maybe, I'm not surprised that they didn't save it for that, but December, in 3 weeks, feels a bit early. But now I think, though, we've also seen, AEW doesn't necessarily have to, hold back as much, especially if it's a match that we've already seen before in Moxley versus Omega. If it's FTR and the Bucks, yeah, I think you save that for a pay-per-view. But even if they went to Moxley and Omega right now, by the time they get to February, they'll have another hot match. They just main evented a show with Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley. Right?
I'm not worried about this company when it comes to their plans. You heard Tony Khan last week talking about the fact that he's got ideas for the next pay-per-view. Now he cautions that stuff always changes, but they have their shit together when it comes to planning out their next cycle of up until the next pay-per-view. I'm sure they have a pretty good idea of where they're going for at least several months to come. That if they're doing this now, there's a reason for doing it at this point. So it's they're promoting this as the biggest match in Dynamite history, which is a tagline you can definitely attach to this. It's a huge title match that everyone assumed they would have to pay for. And like, this to me is going to tell you what is the highest level Dynamite can hit, because this is the episode that should be able to generate that number.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very early, but like, do you think that they go over 1 million for this?
My gut says no, but they should. So I think I say that with the caveat that
we don't know what NXT is going to have.
We don't know what NXT is going to have. We don't know, December 2nd, they shouldn't have much to deal with outside of NXT. But as well, like how hard they hit this the next 2 weeks. Obviously, this is going to be the match to promote. I would say like 1 million should be for your biggest title match, and what you're promoting as the biggest title match. On paper, I'd say yes, but I was very disappointed with that anniversary number, and that was pushed as a big deal.
Yeah. It's definitely hard to say. I'm gonna say maybe not 1 million. I feel like they would have hit that number by now, but we also don't know what else they'll be dressing up this show with. Like, I imagine they'll probably want to make the whole thing must see.
Then we went to the Bunkhouse match with the Butcher and the Blade against Dustin Rhodes and QT Marshall. And we had the Bunkhouse wardrobe, Dustin in his jeans and cowboy boots. The ring is surrounded by bales of hay. You ever been hit by a bale of hay?
No, but those things aren't light, dude. Like, they're heavy.
Dustin lifts up Butcher, and Excalibur thought he was going for the Reckoning, and it was just Dustin. He just got him up and just dropped this dude onto the chair. Blade then gets a guitar and slams it over QT's head, and this is where QT starts bleeding. Then there's a bull rope introduced with Dustin using it on Blade. Butcher shows up with a chair. We go through the break. Bunny has handcuffed Dustin into the corner, and Dustin's watching as QT gets beaten down. Dustin gets free at some point, and he uses a ladder. He uses a kendo stick. They go up on the stage, and Dustin bulldogs the Butcher, who, mind you, worked this whole match with an apron on.
I think you should always wrestle with the apron.
So he hits a bulldog to Butcher off the stage. They go through this platform. Blade, what was Blade hit with? He was
guitar.
I thought Blade used the guitar. Did he get hit? I guess
you're right. Yeah. Blade. Wait. He got hit with something else. Yeah, he started bleeding too.
Okay, well, Halloween was a few weeks ago, but he popped up and he was Keiji Muto because his head, this blood.
Blade is right.
Oh, exactly. This was, if he did take the pinfall, so this was the ultimate Blade job. The guy was just covered in blood. Was this the bloodiest match we've seen on Dynamite?
I'm gonna have to think back.
We've certainly had our share of blood on Dynamite, but I don't think anyone's bled like Blade has.
It looked pretty. Yeah, it definitely was a Buddha scale like type of Blade job. Yeah.
Dustin and Butcher return. Blade uses a chain. They hit full death to Dustin onto two chairs that QT breaks up with a trash can lid. There's a low blow by Blade onto QT. He almost runs into the Bunny on the apron, but then QT knocks Blade into Bunny, who goes off the apron through a table, and it ends with the cowbell shot and a diamond cutter onto the Blade, and they win in 13 minutes. Just a spectacular brawl and super violent. And it seems that the early warnings from Tony Khan that they would not be doing these, for lack of a better term, blood and guts matches on TV. TNT's definitely softened its stance because we've gotten some between the parking lot brawl and this, it seems like the bar is significantly higher of what they can do on TV.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it is cable after all. Cool. Yeah, it was a very bloody match. A lot of big spots. I can't really say I got into it maybe as much, I think, again, for me, it was probably just due to perhaps a lack of interest in the feud itself or the team. Like, much of this existed on Dark, and this was like a big blow off, I think, to months and months of story between Ali and the Nightmare family on Dark.
She maxed out his credit cards.
Yeah, like, it just didn't really resonate to me all that much. But if you were invested in it, this definitely probably delivered for you.
I'm interested to see how this match does numbers-wise, because granted it was with the Young Bucks, but that match did tremendously well a few months ago when Butcher and Blade took on the Young Bucks in a match that, too, was like a wild brawl. So I can see a lot of people flipping over once you saw the visual here and the amount of blood that we're not accustomed to on wrestling shows these days.
Yeah, is that a draw, you think? Seeing blood?
I don't know. I think that there's probably a lot of people that are turned off by it today, but I think there's also a hearkening back to old-time wrestling that blood is going to grab your interest. Like, if you're flipping back and forth between this and NXT, I think you're settling on this.
Well, what was on NXT?
I don't know what was on counter to it.
Okay.
Highlights of the Elite Deletion, and Matt Hardy says that Sammy needed to be deleted and broken. He lost the rivalry to an iconic star, and Guevara shouldn't squander what he has given him. And this was kind of an indication of us going to, like, Big Money Matt, or kind of a heel character here, I thought.
Really?
He seemed to...
Couldn't tell. Like, he swaps back and forth with all these characters. So he wasn't broken this time. He was just kind of felt like Matt Hardy to me. But yeah, maybe.
The podium is set up in the ring for the induction ceremony for MJF into the Inner Circle. They aired Are You Ready to Rock highlights of MJF and Jericho. And Jericho's the first one to come out. He calls it a monumental night. They're adding 2 new members. But first he brings out the original members of the Inner Circle, minus Sammy Guevara. And Jericho can't understand why Sammy isn't here. And I'm just thinking, didn't we all see him die on Saturday? Wouldn't it be realistic that he's has the night off? But no, he did not.
Made his way back from the recycling plant or wherever Senor Benjamin dropped him off.
Then he brings out MJF and Wardlow. MJF is in near tears. He takes the Donald Trump history of his father giving him a small loan of $1 million. He's a self-made man. He's got some great lines that he just inserts here, and says it's a lot of pressure being the ratings ruler at only 25 years of age. And he wrote some poetry that he thought Santana and Ortiz might enjoy. Now, maybe he should have borrowed from Shaq's rap album, maybe, to tie it all together. But he recites All Me by Drake, and Santana and Ortiz are just, they're looking at Drake. What the hell? That's so 2010.
Yeah. I mean, you're the Drake expert.
Am I?
Yeah, what'd you think?
Great. This was fantastic. Santana and Ortiz are showing their displeasure, and Jericho explains MJF beat him. He is now part of this team, and we're going to be unstoppable together. We're going to make this work. MJF admits he doesn't even know who Drake is. I started from the bottom. Now I'm here. And we are also here to celebrate Chris Jericho's birthday. So these balloons got released that didn't quite make their way to the ring, but it was a nice try. And MJF says next week we're going to Vegas. And he passes them all tickets, which Jim Ross had this great line saying, they're probably bus tickets. They're going to have to leave tomorrow. And that's how the segment ended. I thought that was really well timed by Jim Ross. A very funny line to end this segment.
Probably be safer on the bus. But great segment. MJF is always good in every single one of these things. All of his interactions with the Inner Circle have been great. And this one relied a whole lot less on really anybody else. Not Jericho. Jericho's still somewhat blinded by this guy. He thinks he's great despite losing to him. He likes him more than ever. And I love that, Ortiz still hates him. Sammy still hates him. So next week it promises to deliver more like out of ring segments, which again have always been great with these guys.
These could turn out really well. Sending a camera crew with them to Vegas to just shoot stuff.
Yeah, do you think they'll actually be there, or will they just I don't know, fake it?
I think they're really going to Vegas.
All right.
So maybe they will. I don't know. What the hell can you do in Vegas right now?
Isn't everything open?
Are the casinos still open? I know they had reopened them.
I can't see why they would have shut down.
Well, we're gonna find out if these segments are. Maybe they get to Vegas and they realize everything's limited, or they're told, "Hey, what state are you guys coming from? Florida? Okay, sorry, it's closed."
Come on, you really think there's any sort of policing like that?
Well, we'll see. We know they can't just wander into the Apex.
Yeah,
maybe they'll try and go to the Contender Series next Tuesday.
I don't know if Jake Hager would be allowed.
Yeah, they'd have to. There's he's from the minor leagues.
Yes.
So we had some tag team title highlights from the pay-per-view. Ross calls it one of the greatest tag matches he's ever called, and Alex Marvez begrudgingly interviews the Young Bucks. Matt's limping. Marvez says, "I'm here to do my job," and he puts them over as one of the best teams in the world. Nick says the entire world wants to see a rematch. Matt apologizes for kicking Marvez, but right now, in the immediate future, we're looking for fresh opponents, and they mention Top Flight, and they want to take them on next week. They remind them of themselves, and Top Flight, who's been on several episodes of Dark, including Tuesday night's episode, will take on the Young Bucks next week.
I really like how they promote even something as, I don't know, probably not that important in the grand scheme of things as the Young Bucks taking on this kind of no-name team, giving them this level of spotlight in an interview segment like this, and giving you a whole week to anticipate them to appear next week. So by the time they finally make it, the people will be paying much closer attention. I think it's great, and they're full-on baby faces again.
Yeah, they had to acknowledge the Marvez stuff, but you can see they are greatly trying to just reel that back and kind of just explain that they had to get to this place to be able to become champions. But I preferred this rather than just outright ignoring it with Marvez.
Yeah.
But on the topic of promotion, I was kind of surprised that we got nothing. The Young Bucks are putting out their book next Tuesday, and there was no, I don't think they even mentioned it on the show.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's very good, by the way. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. It's covering an era of independent wrestling that hasn't been, coming from their perspective. It's a lot of interesting insight into that period of the 2000s and, their time going overseas, going to Japan multiple times, getting into New Japan, being in TNA as Generation Me, and the whole exit from New Japan, which is some really interesting stuff as well. So anyway.
Cool.
Then Cody, they announced Cody and Darby Allin against Brian Cage and Ricky Starks next week. That's followed by Scorpio Sky and Shawn Spears, and they put over their records this year. Spears is 15-2 in 2020. Sky is 9-2, and JR says that these two are too good not to be featured more often on this show.
With records like that, yeah, absolutely.
Well, here was their big chance. Early on, Sky bit him on the floor, which was not exactly keeping with the rules. They went through the break. There was a slingshot cutter by Sky. Sky then leaped over these steps that were set up on the floor right into a super kick that they didn't fully connect, and Sky is hit with a backbreaker on the steps. Sky comes back. He applies the Scorpion Deathlock, which Tony immediately called the Scorpio Deathlock, and Tully is fucking around with the glove in the corner, placing a slug, which was not an insect, but a block to allow Spears to insert into his glove when the referee was distracted. And then Tully tossed another slug. We had two slugs where he tossed this in, and Tully is essentially giving Sky the opportunity to, I guess, have his own slug, and Sky threw the slug away. You know, after that MJF rhyme, maybe we should have had 2 chains instead of 2 slugs.
2 slugs. Yes.
So Sky throws it away, turns around, and gets blasted by the slug in Spears' glove, and Spears lands on top and pins him in 9 minutes and 8 seconds, disposes of the slug when Bryce then goes to examine the glove.
Yeah.
A lot going on here to get to this finish.
I'm not really sure why Tully threw the slug, which I think is metal. It's just a piece of metal.
Let's just call it a slug.
Yeah. Why did he throw the slug to Sky at the end?
Maybe he wanted to see them battle over and have a slug of war.
A slugfest.
10-9U.
I didn't really understand that, you know? Did he expect Sky to not use it? Like, was he that confident that Sky wouldn't use this weapon?
I don't know what this was, because it was, I don't know. I didn't really understand what this was meant to achieve. Like, obviously he was trying to, like, level the playing field, but why?
Level the playing field? Like,
he gave a weapon to one, he gave a weapon to the other.
Yeah, well, but why? Why would you do that?
Well, I don't know why, but that's what he was doing.
Right. Maybe, like, it seemed like he was throwing that thing to Sky just to distract him. Like, because I don't know. That part confused me. The match itself I thought was good, you know?
Maybe he thought if Sky took his slug, he doesn't have a glove. So if he used the slug, he was going to get disqualified, and he was trying to bait Sky into getting himself disqualified in the heat of the moment.
So while, like,
which should have been if that was the case, that definitely was not explained.
Yeah, I don't even know if that was the case, because, like, you in order to do that, if you intend on, like, getting your client, like, to win via DQ, I don't know if you would give that same thing to your client, because your client gets risked.
No, but his was hidden in the glove. Sky's, it's right there right in front of Bryce Remsburg to see the weapon.
I think it's better to not have the glove, because Bryce was clearly suspicious afterwards, checking the glove.
We never caught him.
Because he put it down his pants.
Well, I don't got anything more than that. That's the best explanation I have for this. Shawn Spears improves to 16-2 this year. So he's got to get, like, a big match. Like, that should be something that comes out of this. Maybe him and Darby will be a match at some point.
I mean, he should be challenging for the world title, shouldn't he? Like, I think, like, Sky and Spears, they're both guys that are just, like, always on dark, and as a result, they're always racking up these wins, but they're not really figured into any sort of story, like, on actual Dynamite. I mean, Sky, I think at this point really should, like, make that move up to, like, you know, a more notable program on Dynamite. It just kind of, like, you know, gives a bit more credibility to the ranking system by doing that. And the guy, like, is really good. I just didn't really have a whole lot of interest again in this particular feud, just because it was just another dark feud that is getting its climax on Dynamite.
We go to Dasha. Kenny Omega was supposed to do a sit down with her, but he bolted. Marvez runs outside to catch up to Kenny, who's on the phone. He gives him a few minutes. He says he's going to step out from being an afterthought, and Moxley is holding something he needs and wants. It's the key to being in the number one position. All these people keep asking, where's the cleaner, the one from New Japan? Well, he never left, and he's ready to assume that role and be the best in the world. He calls it the biggest Dynamite of all time when they face off December 2nd, and he says there's no record of us facing each other in a regular match with regular rules. We are 0-0, and he's got a flight to catch. So he is playing up the lights out match, which did not go on their permanent record. So it doesn't count. It never happened. It was like Jericho beating Triple H for the title.
Mm-hmm. I like this, like, you know, very straightforward interview with Kenny. It was, like, not overly flashy or full of catchphrases, but, like, got all the information out there in a pretty believable way. Not sure why, like, they did that weird tease with Dasha. So what, like, oh, he's an asshole? He just, like, didn't stay for his interview. Is that what they wanted to show?
But then he took time out he took a break from his phone call to stop with this guy. I was like, oh, that's fair. Maybe Dasha wasn't ready, or they were running long.
Like, we got all the information we needed by the end. So I'm not exactly sure for that decision either. Like, why the Dasha tease?
Yeah, I don't know. I can't put too much thought into it. It seemed needless. Ty Conti versus Red Velvet. Brandy's still pissed from earlier as she comes out in Red Velvet's corner. Anna Jay is with Conti. They got a bit of time here. It went 8 minutes. Ross really put over Velvet as being a future player in this women's division. Conti grabs her by the wrist and throws her multiple times, which Excalibur says is an Ponzi. And JR says, oh, what? And Tony goes to interject, and JR goes, oh, come on, Tony. You know what that is? And Tony, I don't know if he was ready for this, but he had the best comeback here. He's like, oh, yeah, I know what it is. An Ponzi scheme. Playing to my interests here. So they continued. There was a double head kick. Both go down. Velvet hit a running leg lariat and then used a jackknife cover for a 2. Conti then drilled her with a knee, lifted her up for a gory special, and then flipped her around into a knee strike, almost like a go to sleep, but from the gory special position, and won in 8 minutes and 10 seconds. And what we had in here was kind of the opposite of the last match, where Anna Jay had slid a chair in for Conti to use, but Conti kicked it away and still won the match anyway. So she was the more noble of the two, but unlike Scorpio Sky, it didn't backfire.
That's right. Yeah, she refuses to, join the Dark Order, or at least be a heel. So that seems to be another story that they're doing right now. This is a fine match. Like, it feels like it's sort of like a more on the kind of like, mid tier of the women's division at the moment, which is not that far from the top right now. Again, it felt like a dark match.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a match, like, they did show a brief highlight of Shida and Nyla Rose from the pay-per-view, but not really a big presence of Hikaru Shida at all on this show. Her big platform was the new game trailer.
Yeah, taking on Kenny Omega. Maybe they should do that match.
Mm-hmm. And that is notable. Like, they are pushing, like, intergender matches for the game, and specifically choosing that clip to emphasize that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But no, what is it? Serena Deeb either?
Nope. No. Marvez is with the Inner Circle in the back. They mock Alex Marvez. And then Sammy Guevara runs in, and he says, I was told to go to the beach by MJF by email. And MJF says, didn't you get my second email? And Guevara is adamant he only received one email. I was waiting for Jericho to say, dude, it's 9:30. You went to the beach tonight? What are you thinking? We have Dynamite tonight. Jericho calms him down, hands him his ticket to Vegas, and he says again, I never got that second email. But MJF just hands him the ticket, says it's on me, and takes off. So we are continuing the rift between Guevara and MJF.
I really like it. I love the fact that they're continuing this, and that within the Inner Circle, there's going to be this level of friction. I think these two are really fun to watch together, and those emails are confusing, dude. Sometimes.
Next week on the show, Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy, the Young Bucks against Top Flight, Cody and Darby against Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, and the Inner Circle slays Las Vegas.
I'm excited for that the most.
Yeah, I mean, we would get another match announcement at the end of the show, but I would say on paper, I think Young Bucks and Top Flight, I think that should be a hot match. You do have Cody wrestling, but it does feel like the Inner Circle bits are going to be the big thing on the show next week. Mm-hmm. And probably multiple segments that we'll go to throughout the night.
Yeah.
Eddie Kingston comes out. The crowd is applauding him, chanting his name. He says, I know my name. I don't need you cheering it. So not embracing the babyface reaction to him and fighting it. Moxley made him quit. He's got to deal with it and move on. Unlike you people who would quit and never wrestle again, I'll never stop and I will be world champion. Now you're going to see two of the greatest luchadors to ever do it. You're welcome. So that was the main event. Penta El Zero Miedo versus Rey Fenix in the rematch from several weeks back. Eddie Kingston on commentary. He just says Moxley was the better man. I don't want to talk about it anymore. And then we shifted focus to Phoenix and Pentagon, where the announcers, especially Tony Schiavone, were on Eddie Kingston stating these two, they're brothers, and they were a great team together, and now they're facing off with one another, and it's coincided with you coming into their group. And Kingston is denying this. He's constantly referencing Penta as his best friend and taking these subtle shots at Phoenix, but not being overt about it. So the match gets off. It's like a pretty hot start at the beginning. At one point, Pentagon places him like in a tombstone position, but then twists the legs for this standing submission before he tears away at Phoenix's mask. And this is seen as being more than just some friendly match that the brothers are having. This is Pentagon fucking with his brother's livelihood with the mask. And they note this would be a disqualification if it was in Mexico, which Kingston says, we're not in Mexico. After the picture-in-picture, Phoenix hits a handspring cutter, and then Penta tears away at Penta's mask, and Kingston is pissed, and he calls for the DQ. He's going after his mask. So we get a forward roll into a spike DDT by Penta onto Phoenix. Phoenix then hits a tornillo to the floor. Kingston brings up Tracy Smothers as they're talking about hooking the leg, which was advice that Tracy Smothers always provided. Phoenix gets hit with the package pile driver on the edge of the apron. There's a Canadian destroyer to the floor, and Penta finishes him off with another package pile driver inside the ring, 12 and a half minutes.
Oh, really good match, as you would expect from these two.
Yes.
They definitely took it up a notch in terms of intensity with the mask tearing, which I think looked really cool. I suppose it was just unclear what happened over the weekend with these two that led them to this level. What exactly happened even in the prior weeks, that might have built up to this sort of, rift.
I mean, if anything, Phoenix is the one. He hurt his neck in the last match. He should be pissed. Also, his brother ended up taking a spot in the Eliminator tournament. So if anything, Phoenix really had the gripe here. Less so than Penta and Kingston. Yeah,
you can see why they did this, because this was the breakup of these two. But I guess I was just missing where the story is of why, where the breakdown in brotherhood occurred.
Well, I think they're placing it on Eddie Kingston is the guy here that's getting into Penta's head and is causing this rift. He has.
But what sort of setup has there been?
Well, there's.
It's not like he's been saying, hey, in private at all or anything that he's that much better than Phoenix. Up until this point, they were very much on equal footing in Eddie Kingston's eyes.
I think there's definitely more context that needs to be placed here, but that is how Kingston's been presented from the get-go, with the winks to the camera, that this is a guy that is someone not to be trusted.
Right. Okay.
And he's been brought into this family, and now this family is divided. So there's more story to be told.
But then Allie came back.
Well, yeah, he's got a persuasion about him. He told Blade to get his family in order, and Blade he didn't want to get on this guy's bad side.
He's a uniter and separator.
Well, yeah, maybe he has multiple plans at work. Maybe he has plans for the Blade. Maybe there's going to be a rift there.
Complicated man.
Well, it is. Kingston gets on the mic after the match. He tries to start a "This is awesome" and "Fight Forever" chant and mocks all the fans for their damn chants. He says these are two of the best. My best friend showed him, and as he's in the ring, just subtly kicks Phoenix to the floor. Penta doesn't need that dead weight. And with that, out comes Pac. And he asks Eddie if he thought he'd be gone forever. The bastard is back, and you made a big mistake. and there's a big pull apart. They note Kingston has not been cleared after the I Quit match. That's why the officials don't want them to get their hands on one another. And just like that, matchmaker Tony, who has mastered the elite general manager game, instantly books Pac versus the Blade for next week, which begged the question, how is the Blade cleared for next week after Eddie Kingston is not cleared after Saturday?
Ooh, well, maybe his lacerations were all superficial. And, yeah, I don't know. Eddie Kingston's
This guy just left like 2 pints on the floor.
Well, Eddie Kingston had his heart broken. That's a bigger injury that takes more time, I think. But, yeah, balance in power has shifted. Pac is back. And it appears that he is a babyface, with Eddie Kingston staying a heel with Penta. And it's also looking like Fenix is, at this point, out of the group. I can't really see how Fenix can come back after just being kicked out of the ring like trash here.
Yeah, it seems like you have divided. It's like you got Pac and Fenix on one end, Penta and Kingston on the other, and then I guess we're left to see where the Butcher, Blade, and the Bunny fall.
Yeah, I mean, if this was like to be Phoenix's like babyface turn, I guess in some sense, I'm a little disappointed, and we shall see, because they could just give a lot more explanation next week. But like, I just didn't feel that any sort of like relationship between like he and Penta that was built up to this big breakup. It just seemed to happen. Maybe they'll explain it tomorrow or next week.
Perhaps we haven't been noticing that there's been a lot of Penta up frustration.
Yes. Very nice.
Feedback time. Forum.postwrestling.com. Let us see what everyone had to say about tonight's episode of Dynamite. And we go to the poll, and tonight, show gets a 7.89. Let us see what struck a chord with everyone. We start off with Bruce Lord, the man that was in this seat last week. Decent Dynamite tonight, if not the showiest. Not sure if the Storm people were mentioning on Twitter factored in, but the crowd seemed to really die down in the second half. Penta and Fenix have certainly had better matches, though the story they told here matched up with the larger one of Kingston's influence on both. I liked Omega's subtle dismissal of his loss to Mox, portraying himself as the 7-star earning best wrestler on the planet in comparison to Mox's grimier hardcore rep. Doesn't just set up a clash of styles, but also advances Kenny's revamped pompous sportsman persona. Lastly, not sure how this would be measured, but has Shaq ever actually helped business any of the previous times he's dipped his toe into wrestling? I have less than zero interest in seeing Cody feud with him, but I recognize that these stunts exist in order to draw more casual viewers in. I mean, we don't really have, I wouldn't say
What's the Shaq data analysis look like?
Well, I mean, to me, like, the stuff he's been involved with, he was never, like, the prime focus. Like, when he did the, when he was there with Hogan for that bash at the beach, it was like, he wasn't, like, a prominent member of it. And then the WrestleMania Battle Royal, like, he wasn't even advertised for that ahead of time, as I recall. So, like, we've had these one-off appearances. I think, number one, do you expect this match to take place on TNT for that crossover?
I do, yeah.
Like, that will do a number. And I do think AEW, they do have to do kind of stunts like this that is going to get people that have literally never heard of AEW to tune in. And I'm not going to say Shaq is like the biggest star in the world you can get, but he's notable, especially to this audience. Like, if you want to, cross promote on TNT's platforms and you've got Shaq building up a match with Cody, I would want to do it during the NBA season. I would want to wait till, you have Shaq on the desk and, perhaps do, some back and forth rather than just throw it out there. But this is probably something you save for some time. Do it in, 2 or 3 months. Yeah.
Well, aren't they coming back in like December?
That's the target. Yeah. December 22nd. I don't think that's official yet.
It's not that far away. But, I mean, if you have somebody, the mainstream star level of a Shaq wanting to do something on your TV show, I don't think you're going to say no. Plus, you might get a great DJ set out of it. So, DJ Diesel.
Maybe that's going to be our spinoff for a third hour of, Shaq's Dynamite on Tuesday nights.
Mm-hmm. All right, we got Aaron from Brampton who says, this was a pretty entertaining show from start to finish. I love the Inner Circle induction segment. MJF indirectly quoting Drake had me howling. Aside from it just being funny, I liked how they furthered the story of the other Inner Circle members not trusting MJF. The woman interrupting Cody was very awkward. I understand her purpose was to be ominous, but she spoke too long without any substance. I lost interest quickly, as I was initially excited for Cody to address his old friend MJF. By the end of that segment, after the others got involved, it made Darby look like a sidekick to Cody. Is that really how the new TNT champion should look when standing next to the former? And did Will Hobbs forget his cue to enter the brawl? Him running out last minute did nothing but remind me that he's on the roster. On an unrelated note, did you guys hear about Ticketmaster exploring the idea of customers verifying their COVID vaccinations before purchase? As people who cover live sports, what are your thoughts on this? Personally, I think it's a neat idea, but seems like it could come with tons of complications.
I haven't even heard of this, so I don't even know the entire logistics of this. So do you have any understanding of it? Like how
No.
Do you have to...
I don't know how it would work. You know, like you just because you... So you have to test negative before you buy, but what about before you enter the building?
Yeah, it seems... I'm sure they have some logic to it, but that sounds very... complicated would be definitely the word I would think. I literally have not heard about this at all. So here, let me pull this up, okay? So people can get a sense. So, okay. Ticketmaster has confirmed that they are working on a system that will use smartphones to verify a customer's COVID status, including if they've been vaccinated. The ticket distributor is currently exploring and planning to develop that system that will sync digital tickets with information from third-party healthcare providers. The provided information from the healthcare providers will include the customer's COVID vaccine status and test results. Ticketmaster says that any and all of the health information and verification will be handled and set up by regional health officials. The company says they will not store any of the health information themselves. Okay, well, putting all your faith in Ticketmaster about sensitive health information is my first concern. This seems like, I mean, we do have, like, we now have a system where, I mean, you have a COVID app where your phone detects if you have come into contact with someone. So it's like we have already submitted like certain information that our phone has that information to. So this is not wild, but to me, it comes with, like, who is enforcing this? Are you telling me like the ticketing agent at the front is now like a pseudo like healthcare screener?
I think that it might be at least, an idea, like, because how else do you enforce these things, in a venue or any sort of enclosed space? I believe, like, you have to show your, like, negative test when you're about to, like, board certain flights, right? Isn't that the case? Like, before you enter into a country, okay, for instance, you have to, like, at least, like, Tama Tonga recently talked about this, upon entering Japan for, this tour of New Japan. He had to, like, before you're getting on this plane, like, or entering Japan, he had to show that he tested negative. So you have to have, if you want to be perfectly safe, like, these sort of, like, gatekeeping measures. And it would make sense that the people issuing the tickets are also the ones to prevent you from entering if you don't pass these tests. Certainly, like, you're dealing with a population who has a lot more concern, I think, about privacy. But I think it's good that they're at least entertaining this idea, of integrating the two.
As we more and more adjust to the COVID generation, like, privacy is something that you are going to have to compromise on. Like, that's inevitable, I think. Mm-hmm. I guess the question here...
I have this COVID app, and because, like, they are so, I think, sensitive to, like, storing too much information, you almost get no information. So, like, I've, like, gotten alerts before that I've been near people that have tested positive, but the information is so vague. And it's so big because they store nothing. So, like, it would have been any time in the past 2 weeks that I might have been near somebody who ended up testing positive. They don't tell me where. They don't tell me when. They don't tell me anything else. And I think sometimes that's frustrating, not knowing anything because people, I think, are so sensitive. So, yeah, it's definitely a compromise. Some people prefer to have nothing out there, and I understand that too. But it's going to be tough to make everybody happy.
I don't dismiss the like that there is a public good that comes with this. I guess another question comes up. Like, it's one thing if you are a Tamatanga going to your place of business in Japan. If you, Wei, wanted really badly to go to a concert, are you getting in a lineup and going through the whole process of getting tested in order to go to a concert versus I'm not going through that hassle, which I think would be the majority of people?
If I really wanted to go to the concert, and at this point I actually kind of do, I mean, it's been a long time, I would go through that trouble. It would make me feel safer while I was there. It would be a detriment, or it would probably deter plenty of other people from, casually stopping by and wanting to go to a concert, for instance. But I would at least feel safer knowing that everybody I was sharing that space with also tested negative.
And you'd have to time it too. Like if you're going to a concert on a Friday night, you have to like time it to be getting your test. You can't get it too early, and then you get a test back, 4 days before. Well, then you have 4 days of potential exposure. Listen, I don't have all the answers. It's very complicated, and these companies have to be thinking like this. They have to be thinking of like, listen, this isn't just something where it's going to be over one day. It's going to be a long, long road back.
I think they're desperate right now, especially if you're a Ticketmaster. Like,
oh, sure.
Just for any sort of like measure to get people to, restart this industry. And I'm sure there are performers that are out there that feel the same way.
Yeah, we should mention that we are planning to have Dr. Alex Patel back on in the coming days here at the site. So we look forward to chatting with him about an update and maybe talk about many of these measures that are out there.
We should probably actually put a questions thread up.
We could, sure, no problem. Okay, let's do one more here. We've gone pretty long tonight. Ryan from Greensboro will finish us off. There was a lot of good and a few awkward moments tonight. The Tony Khan tweets really upped the ante of what to expect at the end of the show, to the point that Pac's return, a major development, seemed like a disappointment. Speaking of that angle and match, Kingston first came in as a full-time character, trying to repair the Lucha Brothers relationship, and his being blamed for them having more attention feels like a rare continuity lapse, especially because they didn't do the storytelling work to get there organically. Felt like something out of WWE where they have to have the announcers tell you the story heavily handed. Similarly, the Bucks challenging a team they'd already previously been announced as facing felt like a WWE-style little error that you don't tend to see out of AEW. The Cody segment was messy. The Inner Circle segment was fine. Ultimately, the show felt of the normal quality, though, with good in-ring work all around and some interesting storyline progressions. Excited for Omega and Moxley in a few weeks and to see where a few storylines go. That said, the little things pushed this down to a 7 out of 10.
Thank you, everybody, for your feedback. Sorry we couldn't get to all of it. These shows are a bit longer, but you can read it all at forum.postwrestling.com. We'll also have a question start for Dr. Alex Patel.
Yes, we will put that thread up. Wei and I are going to be back on Friday night, 10:15 Eastern, with Rewind to SmackDown for all Cafe members to tune in as we'll go through SmackDown and whatever else is happening. And yes, forum.postwrestling.com. We'll put that thread up there if you want to post any questions. Wei, I hope you have a wonderful Thursday and Friday, and I look forward to chatting with you on Friday night.
Well, that's very nice. I look forward to chatting with you then as well.
What do we have coming up on Thursday?
Thursday? The British Wrestling Experience.
That's right.
Yeah.
So maybe they will be reacting to Pac escaping, coming to America.
Sure. Yeah. Plenty. I'm sure there will be. What else is going on? NXT UK, of course.
They're going to be chatting about. They're going to talk about Walter and Ilya Dragunov, the Ospreay heel turn, forming the Empire. They're going to be catching up on a lot of stuff, and they'll be joined by Ian Hamilton as well. So Benno and Martin, always a great time listening to those guys. So should be a fun chat Thursday night at postwrestling.com. And our friends at Up Next already have a show up going through NXT. With a notable title change.
Spoilers.
Sorry. Well, I really apologize.
No, I found out about it already.
Oh,
you didn't spoil it. It could be any title.
That's right.
I think what you meant was Braden and Davey changed the title of the podcast. They were going to name it something, and then they changed it to something else. So that was a title change.
That's exactly what I meant. Good night, everybody. Thank you for listening. We'll speak with you on Friday.